Sycamore Broadcasting presents Under the Shade of the Sycamore Tree with your host, Dr. James Garvin.
Thank you, Matt. Well, the team in Washington has been busy this week. The sequester became reality. The government shut down for a day. No sequester, just snow. We had an old-fashioned filibuster, and the administration was caught lying again. Oh, okay, well, stretching the truth. And the president had a productive private dinner meeting with a number of Republicans. Let's walk through this a bit. Big Sis was adamant that because of the budget cuts, TSA would be hampered in their jobs because so many people would have to be furloughed. The actual percentage of the cut was 2.4% of the upcoming new budget. And this is a really important distinction. The actual budget numbers from last year stayed exactly the same. The cut was about the new higher budgets for this year, meaning no one was furloughed last year. Actually, they hired a lot of new people last year. So where is this dribble coming from? Neither the math, the facts, nor reality make it even close to being true. Then we had the now infamous email that told the Department of Agriculture to make sure not to lessen the effects of the cuts by intelligently moving items around in the budget, establishing priorities, a reasonable and sensible thing to do. Save money, save jobs for people, the right thing. But no, the administration sent word to make it as painful as possible so as not to lessen the doom and gloom that had been coming from the White House. Meanwhile, the Attorney General indicated that the president had the authority, in the interest of national security, to kill anybody, anywhere, including perceived risk Americans now on American soil using drones. From all of our friends in the media, we heard what? Crickets. So quiet, you heard crickets. Then we get this private dinner last night, supposedly, and I have no reason to doubt this, paid for by the president personally. After all, he has become quite rich serving the people. This private dinner that was, and I quote here, productive, concerning tax reform, debt reduction, all of which I offer up the old adage, if your lips are moving, you're lying. Lying is as much a part of American politics as kissing babies. You can say what you want because ultimately no one holds you accountable for what you say. The president promised the sequester would never happen under his watch. He promised that he would dramatically reduce government waste. He promised to close Guantanamo. He promised a lot because he could say as much as he wanted, be fawned over by the press, and never the mind. On the other side, we were promised a plan that would cut the debt, but when the numbers were all tallied, it wasn't true. Republicans were adamant that they would hold their ground when it came to the fiscal cliff, but went right over the edge with nary an apology. One of the great things about a democracy is the fifth estate, a free press, and I'm speaking here in traditional definitions of what the fifth estate is. A press that can and should look at things objectively, report on the facts, and disclose when lies are being told, and allow the public to understand what those in power are doing or not doing, as the case may be. Just like in Venezuela, in Iran, in Russia, the fifth estate has been brought into submission and subjugation by the current White House. Not sure why, other than this is historically the first black American president, and they are not going to allow themselves to be called racist if they criticize them, which is what every single reporter that has criticized him has been called or has been implied. This is the least transparent White House in history, an administration that has been caught in any number of lies, spent untold millions of dollars on personal trips, hasn't produced a budget in years, has threatened reporters, has threatened access to officials, and from the fifth estate, crickets again, just crickets. What has happened to these people in the press? What has happened to those in politics? An interesting form of elitism has struck the country. I can lie to you because ultimately I know what is best for you, even better than you do. I am the superior intellect, the superior being, and you are not superior because I am. I will build a pen for you to play in safely. And sadly, we have sucked at that narcotic tit of let me take care of you, and in a drug-induced coma that could kill this country, we've just kept going. The media has been seduced into thinking the same thing. You all out there don't know what is right for you, but the president does, and so whatever he says goes, and there isn't any bad things about this man, about this presidency. Look, this administration isn't 100% bad, but it isn't 100% good. If we don't wake up to the fact that we're being snookered over political power, those drones will come, your freedom will go, and America won't be any better than Venezuela under Chavez. It takes more than a filibuster to change things. It takes more than a really nice dinner with good wines to change things. You, me, we all have to start speaking out, not just this once, but over and over again. Our silence means that what is coming next is more of the same. And how does that work for you? Republicans, Democrats, they keep getting elected, keep their special privileges, keep huge staffs, waste in government continues, and those people, they never have to pay the piper. We do. Taxes will continue to rise. Entitlement programs, of which many of us ultimately will depend, will crumble, read bankruptcy, because they have borrowed so much it can't be repaid, and the house of cards falls. And this isn't crying wolf. The numbers are the numbers. Our silence guarantees this. Demand accountability to people. Demand an end to the endless lies and the nonsense. Shoot. Demand the White House tours start back up, and everybody in Washington forgo lunch one day a week to pay for it. You can pay for a private dinner, but you can't open the White House for tours. Hog turds. It's time, people. Stand up, speak up. America isn't in trouble because of big business or the greed of millionaires or billionaires. It's in trouble because the clowns in Washington have built a circus of utter nonsense, and we applaud them for it. We keep electing them. Enough. Let me repeat myself. Stand up, speak up. Okay, Stevie, over to you.
Good morning, Jim. The Huffington Post presents an interesting theory, which states in part that our advertisement-saturated democratic process is, in fact, a moral and ethical paradox. Given the indisputable fact that a very, very slim number of so-called independent voters actually decide the elections in our country, competition for those votes is fierce and no holds barred. Another indisputable fact is that in both parties, elections are managed and controlled by professional consultants who were schooled in the methods of attracting those independent votes to win. They're almost compelled to lie to the public. They really have to. And one side feeds off the other until there is very little, if any, truth left on the table. Now, if you ask a Republican for an example of deceptive political meandering, he might tell you that Senate Democrat leader Harry Reid from Nevada repeated over and over prior to last year's presidential election that Mitt Romney hadn't paid taxes in 10 years. Well, that is an utter fabrication. Most people might even call that a lie. Now, was Harry Reid brought to task for lying? No. Did anybody really care? Apparently not. Did anybody do anything about it? No. Now, did that action tell the Republicans that lying was not only going to happen, but that it was going to be effective and could sway the election? You bet. Can't you hear those GOP consultants screaming into the night that they needed the flexibility to meet such lies? Now, if you ask a Democrat for an example of politispeak from the GOP, he might tell you about the "you didn't build that" comment made by Obama, which was twisted, braided, manipulated, and transformed into something shameful. Now, what Obama actually said was that all companies use the infrastructure provided by the government, that being bridges, roads, etc., so forth. Now, another bit of GOP chicanery was a Romney speech in Detroit, which said that Chrysler was going to move Jeep production to China, thereby sacrificing auto worker jobs, when in fact, Chrysler had announced a plant opening in China, but only to service business in the Far East. Now, what all types of political deception, which we'll call lies in the future, involve is a blatant attempt to persuade a voter to view a situation or a statement as favorable to one candidate and, just as importantly, unfavorable to the opponent. The generally accepted premise is that you do whatever you have to do to get elected. That's the backbone of political deception. The most basic tenet of political posturing, and the goal, is to get yourself on the right side of morality. Catching criminals, defending our way of life, apple pie, so forth, and casting your opponent as being on the wrong side of those issues. Strict truth and actual facts being manipulated to attain the goal is somewhat unseemly, but if it works, what the hell? Today's political climate begs the question, can an absolute honest candidate be elected? Short answer, no. Word games are a big part of political deception. Notice I keep saying deception. I should have said lying. I watched our beloved president on the television last night, and he uses the word investment instead of spending. We need to invest in children. We need to invest in education. We need to invest in infrastructure. Now, how can anybody argue about spending money for your children, for spending money for education, for spending money for It's impossible. It's a gotta-win game there, people. In demo speak, investment really means spend. Spending money we don't have for projects that most Republicans and political conservatives find unnecessary, if not downright stupid. But it's not spending, it's an investment. Now, the Obama also uses the words revenue enhancement instead of tax increase, which of course is exactly the same thing. You see, encounter groups are used over and over, and they judge the reaction to words like invest, and those results are positive. Enhancement, that's a positive word. Tax increase are two very unpositive words. They judge words like revenue enhancement, and they're positive. Spend and tax increase make people nervous. Those words are never used. Many times, facts take a back seat to political posturing for the cameras. Did anybody notice the president's State of the Union message when he said, "No more bailouts"? And everybody jumped up and clapped their hands like crazy people and swooned. No more handouts. Again, thunderous applause. And finally, no more cop-outs. Is it any wonder that 49.9% of America dislike this guy? Now, he said no more bailouts when his own administration was a key player in the auto bailout, the bank bailout, and the Wall Street fiasco. What he's saying is, I know you want to hear this, so bend over, here it comes. No more handouts. You mean like the $800 billion Congress passed out to their buddies right after the election? Does anybody pay any attention to the facts that are coming out of this guy's mouth? No more cop-outs. This from a president who has blamed every failure of his administration on the prior president's policies, and when that became a standing joke, he shifted the blame to Congress. In the same speech, the president announced an agreement with Congress to cut $2 trillion in expenses. The Cato Institute's guys swooned. They fell over in the floor. Our budgets are in the $4 trillion range. Doesn't that mean the president's going to cut the government in half? Isn't that what he said? If he cuts $2 trillion and we're spending $4 trillion, well, my God, anybody can do the 4 minus 2. Well, sorry, slow up, not so fast. Again with the parsing and the sleight of hand and the word games. Once you dig deep into what he's saying, the $2 trillion is actually a minuscule reduction in the amount of projected government increase on a 10-year basis. I mean, people, this is smoke and mirrors. The government is still going to grow, but just not as fast as some projections have it. This is political posturing at its best. During the recent sequestering idiocy, it came to pass that all we were doing is limiting the amount of increase. And we're not committing the country to financial ruin and extinction-level problems predicted by the administration and parroted by the liberal press. What a conglomerate of crap. Welcome to modern politics. We need to come together as a nation and as a people and take the misdirection and deception out of our government and present the facts to the people. Only then will the people be able to make a clear decision about the path we should follow. Jim, thank you.
Thanks so much, Steve. And once again, you've been listening to comments for Under the Shade of the Sycamore Tree, part of the Sycamore Broadcasting Network.